So in the background, you can hear a remix that I've done for Marc Cotterell and Dominic Balchin, and this is their song Baby Can You Feel Me, or Baby Do You Feel Me. This is released on Plastic People, and at the moment it's doing all kinds of damage in the Traxsource store, which is great. I've had a bunch of people asking me questions about it, so I wanted to do a deconstruction video. And the one thing I have to point out is that when I did this a couple of months back, I forgot to push collect all and save, and then I went and deleted the remix part. So I'm missing the lead vocal, but don't let that put you off, because most of the questions have been around the actual composition, the musical elements. So I'm going to focus on those. There's a couple of vocals in here, but not the lead. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go and take a look. So we're in Ableton Live, and in most of my deconstruction videos I'll start with the beats, but in this one we're going to focus on the musical elements. The piano is exposed here, and one of the things that I did here was to sit down and play the piano on top of the vocal. All right, and I have mentioned that the lead vocal isn't here, but you can disregard that. The thing that I want to point out here is that there are some inconsistent note lengths. There are also different velocities over here. So when I played this in, I also did something which is an old trick of mine, and that is sometimes I find the natural layout of the piano keyboard puts me off, and sometimes I want to twist things up. So what you can see I did here was I used a pitch MIDI device. I set it to +2 semitones, and so this means that I was playing in different positions to what I'd usually play. And so sometimes that enables me to play something different, right? Because I'm not a traditionally trained musical piano player. But I vibe on stuff, and sometimes it helps for me to shift the pitch here. So it's transposing the keyboard up too. The other thing, because I felt that the velocity levels were a little bit too low, was I used this velocity device here and increased the drive. So that's making it sound brighter than it did originally. So these two are MIDI devices. The sound itself, and I'll tell you what, let me just solo this. Let's have a listen, and notice there's some automation being applied here. This is actually set to the frequency of this low pass filter. So let's have a listen. You can hear that filter opening up. So the piano sound, I mean, look, there are countless piano sounds out there. This one has a particular vibe to it, and it has that whole kind of classic 90s vibe. And this is coming from the Falcon VST. It's a library called Key Suite, and this instrument here, you saw it a few seconds ago. It's going to try and bring back the patch. There we go, D330 grand piano. Okay, it's a Roland. It's a classic. All right, so that is a sound that I really like. All right, and that's what's happening here. This is a great VST, by the way. It's a sampler essentially, Falcon, but way more than that, with a synthesis engine, all kinds of stuff going on. And I love the presentation here, this kind of rack for the effects devices. It makes it all very hands-on, but it's a great tool. So that's Falcon. Now I've also got a phaser. This is the Native Instruments one, Faces. Adding a bit of movement on there. Okay, so what I'll do is soon I'll play the piano without the effects, and so you can get a sense of what it sounds like before. You've already heard the filter, so that's taken away the brightness to create that kind of introduction to the piano sound. EQ8 is just being used here to roll off frequencies below 70 Hertz, because I've got a bass line there, and it felt like that was clouded too much by the low notes in the piano. And then I've got this BX console. You've seen this on some of my other videos. This is to give it emulating the sound of the SSLG series. Okay, so let's have a listen. Let's just drop it in over here. And let me take off a couple of things. I'm going to take off the velocity. I'm going to take off, if I take off Falcon, we wouldn't hear anything. Let's take off Faces. Let's take off the filter. Let's have a listen to it as it is with these. Let's apply the MIDI velocity. So that allows me to still have the variation in terms of what I played in, but it's kind of like selecting all these and dragging them up. I just did that in the actual MIDI device. And let's bring that phaser on. Now. I like the sound of that. Adds a bit of movement, makes it interesting. And I'm using the compressor on the G series here, just to even out the signal there. Okay. So that's the piano. Sounding wicked. Gives it that old school vibe with that Roland keyboard there. Right, organ. Everyone's been asking me about this organ, right? This is 2 organs. You can see here, these are stacked together. All right, so let's drag this over. Let's solo these together. And let's have a listen. Notice they're playing same parts of piano. Let's take a look at what's being used. Another instance of Falcon. This is a preset called Organ Rock. I'm going to let you hear that in isolation. So let's take the other one off. Let's have a listen. And the other organ, Contact. This is the basic gospel organ. Sounds wicked. So you lay those 2 together on top of the piano. Sounds great. So, what are we missing? We are missing the bass line. So, with all these in, let's take a look. This is Reactor. It's the patch Future B. It's been tweaked a little bit. This is from their bassline instrument, the TRK 01 bass. I'm using this a lot. And then you've got a console again, a compressor, and then also some EQing here. Okay, so let's have a listen to them together. Okay, what else do we have? M1 string. You guys must be sick of me talking about this one by now. But it's a classic sound. What else do we have? Another string. You're going to guess what it is. What is it? So this is Spitfire Audio. They got a free series called Labs. String Ensemble. Let's have a listen to that because this sounds good. Let me just take it to the right point. And in isolation. Love the sound of that. So I think that's it on that section. You can see there's a pad here that I don't seem to be using. That must have been an idea I tried at one point. And then what we've got is there's a shift. So I thought if I kept that particular combination of elements running for too long, it might get boring. So I wanted to shift it up. So have a listen. And what I did was I took the chords that I played in and I just sat around and took the sections of them and shifted them up or down just to see how they went. And then what I did was I went back to the bass line and corrected that to make that work. Okay, so the rhythm is the same, but the notes are slightly different. All right, so that's a trick that I've used many, many times to get compositional elements down. And it means things don't get too boring. Then that's partnered up. Then that's partnered up by this pluck sound. So let's take that forward as well. This is a lead from Serum. And we're shifting back to that piano riff from before. Just to add some extra interest, there is this bell patch, which is another Falcon instrument, granular bells. Let's have a listen to that on its own. I mean, look, we're getting to this middle section, and this is where we're hearing something we've already heard before. I wanted to add a new texture, and you can see what's going on here is the filter. Where are we? It's over here. Is basically coming down at that point to add extra impact to the brighter sound here, and then does the same later on as well. So I think that works really nicely. So yeah, nothing really new here. What I will do is I'll bring back this vocal effect, because this is the surviving remnant of those original remix parts. And that really allows the energy to keep going. You can see later on this gets automated as well. And there's some motion left and right going from the auto pan. So let's take a look at the beats. You can see here the programming, and this was a kit. I think it was a kit from the Ableton libraries, one of their packs. It's called Safe House Kit. I think I made some customizations to it. I can't remember. But there's some nice programming here. And at certain points you have the open hi-hat, and at other points you don't. So you can see this here. This is partnered by some ride and cymbal effects, and then a tambourine as well. So isolate the drums, the ride, tambourine. Dropping out some elements at certain points. And you know, there's a breakdown, you know, very common, of course, to hear this kind of thing going on. There is a riser effect coming from Serum. You've seen me use that before. It's probably the 16 bar riser. There we go. Usually I'll tweak the oscillators a bit just to give it something at least that's different. Nothing major on the build up except for a snare fill, which you can see over here. So let's take a look at that section. Let's go and drop in. So bear in mind there was a vocal. Super important, really. But as I said, I forgot to push collect all on stage, and this remix was done a few months ago. So there we go. Let's take a look at the master. Now, interestingly, I didn't master this. Marc got his mastering engineer for Plastic People to do the mastering, so I provided a pre-master with plenty of headroom. But you see what I've got here is my G series. I've got my Drama S73, which is a soft tube plugin. And I use that, you see here, just like not even 1 dB reduction. But for me, I find this thing gels things together. It's a multi-band gelling as well. Whereas this is a very more traditional bus compressor going on here. This is the Fairchildy FGMU. And then I've got the passive EQ, which is like a Manly Massive Passive. I love this thing for adding some brightness. You can see that here. Why don't I just A/B this for you? So have a listen now. That's with it on. I'll take it off. So that's boosting up at 12K, and this has a great high end. Sounds really nice and crisp. Then also I'm doing some reduction. You see this switch. This is alternating between boost and cut. So I'm cutting at 180 by minus 4.9 dB. So that's just to take out some muddiness I felt was there. And then finally there is the ozone limiter, which is on true peak mode. Setting at the moment is 0, but that's just really for this video. You know, usually I recommend taking it down to about -3 or -5. And you know, this is giving me the nice loud signal, but I wouldn't be applying that when I sent it to the label, of course. Yeah, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed that little trip behind the scenes. It's in the stores. If you like the vibe, please purchase it, spread the word, etc. And if you have any further comments, any questions, just put them down below. I will try to get back, but you guys know by now I'm not as active on videos as I used to be. I just don't have the time. This is a rare moment when I do have some time. Okay, so be realistic about your expectations, and I wish everybody all the very best.